in the show, we told you about Economics 101. Who can forget? But here's another lesson. When demand starts to sink, guess what? Supplies start to pile up. Well, Burberry is going to very extreme lengths to keep its supplies in equilibrium and control their supplies. In its annual report, the UK fashion house revealed it has destroyed $37 million worth of its own stock to guard against counterfeiting. Ursula de Castro is the founder and creative director of advocacy group Fashion Revolution. She joins me now live from London. Okay, clearly you have a problem with this. You know what the fashion house is going to say. They're going to say, we are protecting our brand, we are protecting our prices, we are protecting our reputation. This has to be done, and we're not the only ones.
Absolutely. I think it's very, very important to understand that this is a very widespread practice throughout the fashion industry. It doesn't just affect luxury houses, it also affects the high street. In fact, we had H&M doing something similar quite recently. It is, the result for me of years and years of mass production and, to a certain extent, an industry that is profoundly inefficient, where burning and destroying clothes is the solution rather than resolving the problem at source and being more efficient in the production of the clothing themselves.
Are you framing this as a moral problem or as a business problem?
Both. I mean, I think the fashion supply chain is very disconnected, and the fact that we can't create a system where materials and clothing are valuable to the brands that produce them as much as they are to the consumers that buy them is certainly a business problem, because, of course, this is a massive waste of material. But it is also a moral problem, because there isn't such a way as disposing of clothing in an eco-friendly way. So it is a moral problem because it affects our environment, and it is a moral problem because it is slightly a slap in the face of, consumers' hard-earned money that are, used to buy this clothing. I would like to say, really that Burberry is not unique in this. In fact, they are one of the few brands that have, to a certain extent, a creative approach to this problem. Their recent collaboration with Elvis and Cressy in the UK, upcycling their leftover leather, shows that they are looking at solutions to this huge problem. But the reality is that it is a huge problem throughout the supply chain, and I don't think it shows any sign of stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, and it doesn't show so far any creative solutions in that direction as well. It's an issue we'll continue to keep talking about, because I, for one, was quite naive as to how much material was actually destroyed. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Now, fashion entrepreneurs are just some of the people benefiting from a new scheme by JP Chase. Now, the bank is spending millions of dollars to support minority entrepreneurs in Detroit, New York City, and San Francisco. Now it's taking its Entrepreneurs of Color Fund to Chicago. Christine Romans has more.
One order at a time, Vernita Johnson's print and embroidery business has grown to annual sales of $500,000 and counting.
I really didn't even realize I did it until my accountant said, "You go, girl."
Johnson started her business out of her bedroom on Chicago's West Side nearly 30 years ago. Today, she employs 8 full-time workers, provides part-time work to young people in the summer. She owns this building and this equipment, and is exactly the kind of business the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund wants to support. The fund works with local community groups to direct critical financing to minority business owners when bank loans aren't an option.
When you're small and you're still running in the red, they tell you, when you come back next year, when you're doing a little bit better, and we're going to look at you again.
And then you say, but I could be doing a lot better if you just took the risk.
If you just take a little risk on it. It's almost like a make or break you, because you need the equipment, you need the working capital. Sometimes bridging that little gap would be very essential.
That gap can be wider for minorities. Only 19% of Chicago businesses are owned by people of color, in a city where non-whites make up more than half the population. After the fund's successful debut in Detroit, JP Chase, along with the Fifth Third Bank, are now moving to Chicago, investing $6.5 million to help Chicago's South and West Side business owners.
You have to do it with collaboration. It simply does not work if, business is pitted against government or vice versa.
The theory, work with the community leaders to grow businesses like Vernita's. Small business in those inner city Chicago neighborhoods provide nearly 70% of jobs. And if existing businesses added 1 or 2 jobs each, it could eliminate unemployment in the inner city.
Most people want to do well. They want to do things themselves. Sometimes they need a startup loan, and sometimes they need advice and coaching, which I think is really important. And if you can make that loan and get that person, you can lift up a community.
How do you see local government, banks, the people with the capital and the resources, what is their moral imperative to help fix that?
I think all of us in society should have a helping hand. It takes government. If you have bad government, it's not going to work. But it takes business. Business has the know-how. So if you do it together, it works.
How important is it for you knowing that you're providing a livelihood for other people in your community?
Sometimes I look at the guys and I ask them sometimes, it wasn't working, what would you be doing? And some of the guys, they actually tell me, I don't know, because in the area that I live, it's a lot of crime there. And sometimes you get in the wrong direction, you'll do the wrong thing. He said, but coming to work, it never crosses my mind.